Welcome to this peculiar island full of mystical creatures. Of all the wondrous creatures on this island, we must focus on one creature, a lonely one. He lives a solitary life, independent of these other furballs and reptiles. It is a mammal that searches for resources in the strangest of places on the World Wide Web. This board game reviewer is a foul one, yet an inquisitive one. He seeks to dive deep into the soul, the very essence of the games he is reviewing. Will he inform the other wondrous players online? Now, it appears that this wondrous creature is about to...
Alex?
Oh dear.
Hello?
We've been caught.
Alex? Hello?
He is saying
Hello?
some babble.
Hello?
We must do now what the creature says.
This is Wondrous Creatures, a Euro to add to the low-conflict tableau builders like Wingspan and Earth. And what do you know? This game is also nature-themed. Another twist is that Wondrous Creatures has a new spin on worker placement, with filling 2 hexes with each worker. And when you place workers down, you trigger everything around them. Oh, some of your workers are being ridden by your cool special captain. Then you take back your workers as a voluntary action. Wondrous Creatures is a worker placement meets tableau building Euro of about 40 to 80 minutes to try to get as many wondrous creatures. And I mean, there's so many. There are so many wondrous creatures to play. It's for 1 to 4 players, though we'll quickly recommend lower player counts because it's quite low interaction here. We played every single player count 1 to 3 players once for this review, and we'll talk about each player count experience. Before we get into it, this is a sponsor review via Bad Comet Games. Thank you guys for sponsoring us. But again, we never compromise our scoring here at Shelfside. We do totally understand if you want to click off because sponsor review and all that stuff. Anyways, let's get on to now how to play. The goal is to have the most victory points by the time all these glorious trophies are taken. Trophies are taken when any of these objectives are achieved, which of course get you points. There are also plenty of other ways to get points, like getting points from creature cards played or points from getting eggs to fill up your player board. By the way, there's 4 different resources that are used to pay for mostly cards from your hand. So let's break it down for a turn. You can, Action 1, place a worker down on any empty 2 hexes next to each other, triggering every resource habitat next to that worker. For each trigger, you can either get 1 of that resource, like here we're taking 1 fruit and 1 flower, or you can decide to take cards instead, so here we'll take 1 fruit and 1 flower card to our hand. You can also get 1 fruit resource and 1 flower card, you get the idea. To place a worker on a hill, you just have to pay a resource first. If you sit on an egg, you take it and put it on your board. By the way, whenever you do that, you get the thing that the egg covers. Action 2. Play up to 2 cards from your hand to in front of you, paying the resources on the left. Sometimes they'll do something later, sometimes they'll do something now. Action 3. Fulfill an objective. You just take 1 of your quills and do the objective. Maybe it's like you have 3+ blue species on your cards you played. Then you take a trophy, that's also worth points endgame. Oh, also when you uncover a space with a quill, you get the thing, so here we would get 3 points. Action 4. Recharge. Only possible once you have all 3 workers on the board and you just take the back. Then you can trigger certain refresh cards in front of you, and then move up this time tracker, which is like the game's clock moving forward. This can refresh the buying area and or add eggs to the board for people to grab. Okay, there's also 2 free actions you can do on your turn anytime. Again, it's free to do these. You can 1. Spend an energy on certain creature cards you played to do their ability. 2. Pay a net to grab an egg next to your worker, or use a white hex ability next to your worker. And that's pretty much the bare bones of the game. Once someone grabs that last trophy, make sure everyone has spent the same amount of turns, and then the game ends. Tally up your points for mostly your achievements and cards. Trophies count as points too, and whoever has the most points is maybe the most wondrous creature of them all. Great job, you wondrous smart person. Pros! Starting with component pros, man, this game is really good looking. Like right away, I feel like I'm Darwin or Dr. Dolittle looking at this box here. Looks like one of those exquisite books you'd find at the bookstore. No kidding, I left this on the coffee table and legit thought it was a book when I came home from a hot second because of all that detailing on it. Now what's inside is sick. Before we go further, we want to share how we're using this upgrade pack, which basically kicks up the quality of many token pieces that would previously be cardboard. This upgrade pack is $30 and totally worth it if you play this game frequently. It's great to wooden up the non-player pieces like these eggs you'll be flipping all the time. So yeah, get the upgrade pack if you want, but you don't need it to get the wooden player pieces. And your workers are super cute animals that serve a function of covering up 2 hexes. The characters included are all distinct with stuff printed on the front and back. What's more is that you combine the animals with your captain. Why aren't magnets being used in more board games? Probably because it's a pain to manufacture, but it is insanely secure. Cool human with prints on both sides can now ride its specific mount. Look at and hear all these cool combinations.
I guess it was 2000.
And it's not just magnets, just cause magnets cool. It makes it so that your captain can prominently be seen on the board, and it'll never fall off when being handled normally. More magnets please in games? And the captain art is quite cool. Look at them with their meeples and the art there. Man, it just feels so whimsical and, dare I say, wondrous. And look how pretty this board is. There's all these friends on the board for us to hang out with, watching us as we play the game. No, seriously, this board is really cool. There's more good physicality. Your player boards are layered cardboard, so there's a slot for your captain to go into. There's all these slots for your eggs to drop into. There's slots for your wooden quills to occupy before the game, then you uncover things. There's also these resource markers that move up and down. Feels very nice. Then there's this time tracker on the board, which is this huge wooden piece. It's great to touch. Oh, and then some of the eggs in this game go inside this felt bag that, look, it has print on it. It has print. A lot of games will just have a blank bag here. Nice. But actually, what really matters is the cards. Great backs, by the way. And we didn't get the issue of previous printings where they were apparently differently sized and colors. These all feel very uniform. Visually, they're easy to tell apart. The species is clearly on the left and the habitat on the right. Then the type of card it is, like an instant or continuous effect, is all well separated via color on the bottom. So when looking at them coming out on the board to buy, if you're hunting for a color, you can tell right away. Really helps with planning. That reminds me of iconography, and that is also top notch here. Getting a wild resource, nabbing cards with your sickly witch hand are all extremely clear. A nice distinction between sweeping 3 cards with 1 broom and all 6 cards with 2 brooms. Clever. And because other iconography was already clear like resources and colors of cards, other icons quickly make sense. I had no problem remembering almost all of them after the end of my second game. And this is actually one of the best rulebooks I've ever encountered. It's incredible. Like, we don't have to bash on a rulebook. Thank goodness. It's very well structured with plenty of diagrams and with clear wording that never wastes your time. Plus, they have this really helpful explanation of every single card ability near the end of the rulebook in case you get in a rules argument. Perfect stuff. So now onto the gameplay pros, we gotta start with the cool worker placement. As we said in the how to play, you're covering 2 hexes as you place down your worker, and this adds to more complexity, more nuance in placing. Like, you can more actively block your opponent if you decide to place in a way that maybe gives you less adjacencies that you want. Then you're rarely ever blocked too, because you can spend 1 resource to go on any hill, so that's a cool trade-off in spending a little bit to maybe get a lot more. Also, this is different than many worker placements where after you place your worker down, that's not the end of the decision making. That's actually kind of just the beginning. For each connected habitat, you get a resource or a card. So in practice, you're getting 3+ connections with all these 6 cards to choose from. Holy cow, that's a lot of decision making. Do you want to tunnel in on getting the resources to play the cards from your hand now? Or maybe do you want to do just some pivoting and getting one of these here to add to your hand? Collect the card or get the resource. Oh, and you've seen these white hexes around the board too. These give more of a type of area control feeling to the board, since if you're adjacent to one, you can spend a net on your turn as a free action to trigger it. So if you're adjacent to something you really like, for example, gaining an egg at random, you can milk it as long as you stay next to it. Since removing your workers is based off of the recharge action that you decide when it happens, you can stay next to places you want and deny your opponents for multiple rounds if you want. So that just feeds into how awesome the recharge system is. That is, you take an action to recall all your workers from the board. So because this is voluntary, remember you can do other actions like completing objectives or playing cards from your hand instead of placing a worker down. You can decide to stall your recharge for a very long time in this game. There's more nuance to recharging. As a reward for recharging, you also get to activate all of your recharge cards again. Okay, so you probably want to wait until all those are out before recalling. Recharging also moves up this time tracker, which not only grants you a net at minimum, it can start sweeping the cards to get rid of cards your opponents wanted. Okay, so we just talked about the 2 worker placement centered actions, that is the interesting placing and the interesting recalling system. But actually, the meat of Wondrous Creatures is not that. The heart of this game is in the cards. It's in this the cards in your hand. And these, in actually being all unique, and all 126 creatures you have in this game, they're all unique, they're handled very well. To break it down, there's 3 categories each card falls into. Species and habitat are both ways to get objectives. Type can also help score objectives, but are primarily to say what abilities you get when playing the card. Okay, so the reason why I'm drawing attention to all these 3 is that no card ever feels like deadweight in this game. They all serve, all the creatures, they serve a nice purpose. Obviously, the ideal is when creatures give you an ability you really like, then also start fulfilling an objective you're going for. But because this game has 7 species and 4 different habitats, it often doesn't work out so smoothly, and you gotta do some work around puzzling. What's more is that there's a very clever design choice to make your card drop be up to 2 cards, which means if you're not playing 2 cards as an action, you're playing inefficiently. As a result, you're constantly trying to save up enough resources and the appropriate types of cards to play 2 at a time. And card drops will influence each other, like playing an instant to get you some resources so then you can play the next card drop. Or maybe how this second card gets cheaper with the first one being played. Or maybe the first card you play is a passive VP generator, like getting a VP every time you gain an egg, and then the second card gains you an egg. Honestly, the ways in which you can sequence 2 cards together are pretty endless. Seeing how there's 126 unique creature cards, yes, they're all unique, and how you play them are always dictated by the ingredients around them. That is, there's no one best combo drop all the time. You can't come in with a set build ever. You have to adapt because 126 cards all come out randomly with new game states. But wait, Ashton, there's 126 unique cards. How could that be controlled for randomness, right? That must be insanely random feeling. Well, actually not. There's so many design choices that makes you feel like you have a lot of agency in card selection. First off, to start the game, you start with 8 cards in your hand. Then you discard down to 4. Good mitigation already. Then if you see a card in the middle you must have, well, there's a lot of ways to get it, from placing down a worker on the board, or you can play a card that gets you it, or you can even play a net to maybe get it. Then to deny the central buying area from opponents, there's so many ways to sweep the middle. This includes fully sweeping and partially sweeping. Finally, there's creature cards that let you draw multiple cards off the top of the deck. So let's say you draw 3 cards off the top of the deck, pick one. So needless to say, there's just so much card churning that you will find something that helps your game state. I decided to look closer after feeling so surprised how well the RNG felt handled. And the thing is that there's some instant cards that are actually cousins. They're extremely similar. They have the same ability and very, very similar costs, sometimes the exact same cost. This is a really good idea if they're going for 100% uniqueness with so many cards in the deck. Have slight mirror copies that are the same species. And when you figure this out, it makes emergent randomness easier to handle. You can start planning for abilities because you know there's 2 copies in the game of it. Plus it does some neat world building as these guys will share names and visual similarities. Saying Nid-Might versus Nid-Knight is such a tongue twister. Say it out loud. Nid-Might versus Nid-Knight. Jeez. Actually, I'll just end the card design with how your hand of cards feels extremely fluid. That is, there's constantly cards coming in and out of it. I must state again, there's 2 main ways to pick up cards, through workers or other card abilities. Like you could pick up 4 cards through a worker. Then playing them is pretty much always 2 at a time as an action. Sometimes you're discarding cards from your hand to get points. Sometimes you're discarding cards for resources from your hand. In and out. It's just in and out all the time. Okay, so now on to a smaller but much appreciated mechanic, the eggs. So as opposed to something like Wingspan where you get an egg and they sit on your birds and they don't really do much after that, they just give you points, eggs in Wondrous Creature actually feel like a living, breathing thing. Like what do you know, they're like eggs. Eggs serve as some point granting when you get them, and they can be flipped, like you'll hatch them to help you fulfill a species-based objective like that one over there. Or another way to spend eggs is to flip them over as a cost for some abilities. But you can also flip from used to unused as a cost. That is, hatched to unhatched. This is a clever design where it makes you feel good to have a cost now become a benefit. So you're getting double bonuses off of egg flipping. Of course, you gotta have the board set up to do this. This can let you do some really tight, clever plays of flipping eggs for an objective. So you get the points, and then you reflip them again, and then maybe you spend them on another objective. It's very tight. Then you'll notice how you only have so much space on your player board for eggs, and you want to collect certain color egg to hatch for certain objectives. So you can't just be like herder loading your board full of eggs just to get bonuses ASAP. You have to be careful about which combination of 7 colors you want. Now for progression pros, seeing how this is a tableau builder, there's a lot of nice feeling progression. You're committing to more and more endgame cards to score from that rack up points. You might have more cards to spend energy from to get free actions, and then you have more of these yellow recharge cards that trigger every time you recall your workers. So a recall, and then suddenly all these trigger. But I want to highlight how quickly the game starts jumping forward when you achieve an objective, which aside from promising you those points, lets you place this quill achievement marker, which gives you the ability it empties. You can get more resources, get 2 cards, get a net, or even trigger all your recharge abilities. This is kind of like another gameplay pro where the completing an objective action isn't a dead action. It's not just a way to score points. It's a means to get exactly what you want for the next turn as you uncover something. And of course, timing objective completion is important to counter your opponent. Oftentimes, I found myself being okay just getting the lower tier of some of these objectives just to get the bonuses on my player board. Oh, and then the first objective you complete unlocks your hero ability. So yeah, you want to weigh how quickly you want to rush that depending on your hero and then the game state. Also, the more points you get, the more bonus goodies you get injected into your veins. And while this is pretty standard for a Euro, the placement of them is clever. First to 5 points gets to decide the first upgrade the map gets. Then as you go through the 10 to 15 to 20 net section, your advancement can really start to pop off, giving you all these nets you can spend for free to start spending on the slightly more advanced board. When we look at mid to late game Wondrous creatures, pretty much everyone has 1 to 2 recharge abilities to use, are figuring out which of the remaining objectives to go for, and so each crew placement becomes more of a boon as there's more tiles on the board. Again, crew placement can easily lead to 4 resources, or sorry, that can also be 4 cards. Now we finally get to the captains, that is the asymmetrical abilities. So there are 9 included to choose from, and what they'll do is that they'll modify what happens when you place your captain riding their steed, so this worker placement action. While we haven't tried all of them, they do add some asymmetry and are worth trying out. I played Buffman Hoa, who turns your captain placement into 1.5 actions, as you can also play a card as normal when placing him. Or there's resource generators like Samuel and Octavia. My favorite to use was Freya, who is all about eggs, letting you pick up an adjacent egg when she's placed, or letting you flip up to 2 eggs. So you can use that to flip eggs back to new. Woohoo! Throughout our 3 plays, we've only played about 4 of these, but yeah, after going through the list of 9, nothing is overpowered. They all just marginally give you a power boost, so no need to worry about balance here. Even if one of them was figured out to be decidedly stronger than the rest, remember, you don't start out with your hero ability. You have to unlock it. So if you're playing at a high level, you can try to counterplay your opponent from getting their first objective so they don't get their hero ability as early. The final pro is that Wondrous Creatures has immense replayability. With 126 unique cards in this game and 9 playable captains, yeah, the possibilities are really just wondrous. Oh, and then also each game has a different starting objective area. They'll usually just ask you to get certain colors of species. Sometimes they'll ask you for eggs, or getting one of each card type, or getting a bunch of cards. Again, they're pretty similar, but that adds more replayability. You can mix and match these stacks of 7, then 5 objectives. And while this initial board is mostly static with eggs spawning in slightly different locations, your hand and the buying area will 100% be different. That will really dictate your strategy. In every game, you'll basically have to blend a bunch of different mixtures of how many eggs to collect, how many creatures to play, all paired with the speed of getting those trophies and achievements before your opponent does. Heck, sometimes you might have this really nice engine going, like I did here, and just want to stall the end of the game. Just keep milking those recharge cards. Replayability also comes in the way of solo mode, where it felt really cleanly designed. Essentially, you get the solo bot of varying difficulties, and all you do on its turn is flip over a card and do the thing. Robot never gets resources, instead it just attains creatures face up or face down, or lastly, will place a worker down to get points. This felt just enough like playing against another player without having to worry about really any bookkeeping, so great job here. I noted that if you're curious about how good you are at Wondrous Creatures, the robot serves as a great timer, as it has its own progress marker that will eventually start fulfilling objectives. It's one of the most elegant solo bots I've ever witnessed. Cons! A couple of component cons that irked us. First is that the box is going to require you to get a couple of your own plastic bags for the pieces. Upgraded components purchased or not, you'll need about 8 to 10 of these pieces to properly store things. We also recommend getting some way to divide the 7 colors of eggs, so maybe 7 more plastic bags, because you have to divide them at the beginning of each game. I mean, it feels like separating 7 colors of M&Ms before every game. Then the player aid, while it does a good job of showing all the possible options on your turn, is nearly not comprehensive enough. What it needed is to give more detail on what placing a crew member does, or how completing an objective also lets you fulfill the quill, and just replace the back with an explanation of the many symbols. Because despite the iconography being straightforward, sometimes you'll need a reminder, or on your first game. So you have to resort to the back of the rulebook for clarification. If you're playing with multiple people, this would have been nice to be printed on another sheet. Also, some of the special effect icons on the hex board are hard to see, because they're just small. I mean, just look at how small they are on the reference sheet compared to my fingernail. Seriously, I'm squinting here. So just blowing up the game would not really be a good solution, because then it wouldn't fit in the box. So my solution would be to take this special effect symbol on hexes and just make that occupy most of the hex. The habitats are already distinct enough with the colors, so you can just use the outside of that hex to know what resource you're getting. Oh, and what the heck is going on visually with this special space that lets you grab a butterfly net instead of a resource? It just makes it seem like you're getting VP for standing next to it, but nope. It does nothing. The final con, which is probably the most hard-hitting, is the text on cards. It's just way too small. Especially for how much you're reading in this game, there's just not enough bolding used. So the cards use the structure of a symbol, then explaining what the symbol is. So yes, while this is helpful for beginners in theory, it can often lead to a weird worst of both worlds. Veterans have to deal with the text on the bottom explaining things they already know from the symbols on the top, and then the beginners are encouraged to ignore learning the symbols and just read the bottom. And these text descriptions are way too wordy. Like, if you want the fully streamlined way, which I think is the best compromise, then take something like Majadas. This would just say gain, then put the symbol to egg. That's it. 2 things needed. Like, look at Nutabai, a very complex energy card. Personally, I'm not really sure where my eyes should go when I'm reading this card, so I just end up only reading the text. I don't want to delve into every card, where most of the card wording could get cleaned up. Scoring! Now it's time for a recommender score on Wondrous Creatures, where we try to critically evaluate the aforementioned pros and cons of the game, with the caveat of whether or not this is even a good idea in the first place. This worker placement and tableau building. Yeah, both tried and true formulas here. So this is gonna get a 9 out of 10. It is excellent. And actually, I'm gonna go ahead and give it the shelf size certified certification right there. These are games that are extra awesome and just really resonating with my brain, irrespective of all scoring. Cause yeah, I can't stop thinking about this game. Wondrous Creatures is an amazingly well-presented low-conflict Euro, and has a tableau building with playing cards, a neat little captain ability, and of course, objective rushing. Okay, you've heard stuff like this before in Euros, I'm sure. But Wondrous Creatures innovates upon the formula by giving you a metric mammal ton of card decision making. A lot more than previous card-based Euros like Earth and Everdell, which we reviewed. Then Wondrous Creatures has a neat spin on worker placement. I haven't seen any worker placement that comes remotely close to the feeling of occupying which 2 hexes with each worker. That's a cool little puzzle there. And then when you're placed, you have this free action to spend nets to keep milking the spaces next to you. So then you might want to occupy spaces for as long as possible, wait and clog up the board, and then later on, decide to recall when you really want to. And this gets into the inherent Euro issue of incredible downtime from puzzling so much. Sometimes you just gotta wait as your opponent does a chain reaction thing of doing a free action, which lets them do another free action. And now they have their main action, which lets them play a card that does something, which now gives them enough resources to play another card, and that does something. Okay, then they advance points, so now they get something else. Oh shoot, maybe they should spend another net to get another free action. This can go on and on. I was actually joking during our last playthrough that this game might be an incredible fit if you love distractions, because your attention here is constantly being diverted by new inputs that drastically matter. Which card do I need to play first during my next 2-card drop? This first or that first? Oh wait, but then this one lets me get a bonus on that. Okay, what if someone rushes that objective? Yes, now I need to do that. Oh shoot, someone swept the middle. Okay, 3 new cards. Okay, how does this factor into my previous plan? Distractions, it's new inputs. And don't you forget how freaking complex a single worker placement is, because once you've decided where to place, well then, okay, do I take these resources or do I take the cards? What combination of resources and cards do I want? Like, this can get crazy when you're landing on 3 different colors and you haven't looked at the viable cards yet, so you need to go take a look. Whew, yeah, it's a lot of options. If you get really good at Wondrous Creatures and are actively keeping tabs on your opponent, you'll be watching them like a hawk to see how you can block them on the next worker placement or grab/sweep away cards they like. It's gonna take a while to get to the skill level. You can use a lot of that awesome solo mode as practice, but yeah, it's gonna take a while to get to this point of true counterplay. That is really understanding how strong cards are in relation to all the ways to get points. If you get really familiar with the cards, I'm sure the game goes faster. We haven't brought up time length yet, but it is printed out of the box 40 to 80 minutes, and I could definitely see that being true. In our playthroughs, our first 2-player game was a little under 2 hours, could easily seeing that being under 1.5 hours. And my first solo game was a little bit over an hour, and I could see this being under an hour. So yeah, the time does seem to check out, but we haven't gone there yet. However, if you play with 3 to 4 players, the game doesn't get substantially better for the amount of downtime you introduce. Sure, the spaces for workers are more sparse, so recharging and placing workers is different, but yeah, definitely stay in that 2-player realm if you're time conscious and tiny text conscious. FYI, our 3-player game with 1 new player took over 3 hours. Granted, he's not familiar with Euro games and wasn't rushing objectives like he should have, the game should probably take in under 2 hours. And if it wasn't already clear, the amount of information shotgunning this game does to you always throughout the game is immense. And I would not recommend it as your first, even second, or maybe even third Euro. It's a game for those who love low conflict tableau building and are really attracted to this take on worker placement with tons of cards shooting out at you. It feels like about 2 jumps ahead of Wingspan in complexity. So if you like Wingspan and are familiar with that complexity but aren't sure if something with this amount of card input is for you, maybe try something like Earth or Everdell first. But if you're in that rarer group who really knows their way around the block with Euros and are looking for something meaty that spins worker placement differently, then the whimsical Wondrous Creatures could be it. It felt innovative to us, and you can keep playing it for a long time. Oh, also obligatory shout out to the 126 unique creatures in this game. Like, there's a lot of effort put into all the art on this and all the names, and it's just fun reading the amount. Reviathan, Barone, Kokoro, Nidmite, Dracogar. The list just goes on and on. Okay, so now it's time for my personal score. You guys know me, I tend to like more interaction in games, but You know, puzzling can be cool. So what would I rate this, right? After all the Euros we tried, this one is going to be a 6 out of 10 for me. It is above average. Now, for the longest time, I was debating having this be a 7 out of 10. I was so close to reaching that, but I really decided that there is just not enough interaction for me. But the card play, meaning worker placement, is so satisfying. I have so much respect for this game, so much respect that, yeah, it gets the shelf size certification for me. I think the last time I actively felt so excited by placing workers down was Star Wars Rebellion. Obviously, that worker placement is more exciting to me in a conflict 1v1 game, but the trade-off in Wondrous Creatures between card draw and resource gain, all while seeing what special abilities you can later collect, is really fun. And those meeples are so great to touch. If I'm playing with Alex, who doesn't suffer from analysis paralysis, there is zero downtime. The puzzling never ends, and each mechanic feels satisfying to play. Flipping eggs, using my character ability, and finding out which 2 cards to drop is cool. Okay, so now I can talk about my personal gripes, which again are really personal. I can see so much meticulous design put into this game for the shelf size certification. I keep thinking this game really deserves a bunch of respect. So now, personal gripe number 1. I feel pretty much no connection to this theme, none. While the animals are cute, I feel no really connection or incentive to be placing animals in a giant reserve in front of me. And now I have a bunch of animals to look at in a reserve and they give me abilities? How? I just met them. Are we stealing eggs from the board and then forcibly hatching them? How does that work? Don't worry about it, just rush objectives so I can have my expedition feel pride as opposed to the others. Sure, it just feels really vague. But let's pinpoint an early to mid game where my brain actually goes on full on puzzling mode, where I ignore the creature names and most of its art for deference to gameplay relevance. And because there's constantly new cards to look at with the board to worry about, my brain rarely leaves this optimization mode. So the cool art and theme just ends up being a nice, pleasant vibe thing, but I'm never really smelling the roses. I don't get to stop and smell the cool wondrous creatures, because this game never lets us foot off the gas pedal and how much the game state is changing. I compare this to Everdell, where I was a lot more immersed in the theme, probably because there's less focus on the board and more multiples of cards, and there's also cards that connect to each other. I was actively engaged with the personality of cards like husband plus wife. In Wondrous Creatures, while the cards do have an identity, it's just kind of glossed aside for, oh, use the ability, move on to the next creature. My second personal gripe is actually more mechanical, where I feel like I start to lose steam in the last third of the game. This is because I felt like I've gotten my engine established and I've done everything I've wanted to do so far from it, and I'm not good enough to see the best optimization, and as thus I have some bloat in my reserve, there's bloat in my hand, and I've done the objectives I wanted, and it's a little bit of a struggle to get across that finish line of getting all the rest of the trophies I want. Now, if I played a lot more of this game, this wouldn't really be the case. Especially in single player, I didn't feel this at all. So maybe this complaint would just straight up disappear if I play this game like 3 more times. My third and last gripe is that there's just not enough asymmetry for me, which again ties into how the theme doesn't do anything wondrous for me. Because you don't actually start with your captain, they're effectively faceless until you get an objective once, which works fine if you want a more controlled competitive experience. It ties into how this game is just mostly mechanics and little applied theme, but man, it's very visually pleasant. I contrast that with playing the more hard to learn Gaia Project, which I rated a 7 out of 10. And in that game, I love the identity of an alien you could game plan around vigorously, then have a huge reason to play again with all the aliens available. With Wondrous Creatures, none of the captains really caught my eye on me wanting to try out a cool build with them. Wondrous Creatures is actually going to join this trifecta of these other low interaction, low conflict Euros that live rent-free in my head and have shelf size certification. Yes, I'm going to retroactively give a shelf size certification to Gaia Project because that review was made before shelf size certified was a thing. So yeah, congrats, Wondrous Creatures. You're not really for me, but I respect the heck out of you. So yeah, don't let my personal takes on board gaming enjoyment ruin Wondrous Creatures for you, because this could be really wondrous. It could be wondrous for you. Anyways, that was Wondrous Creatures. Let me know what you think about this and the review if you have any questions, and yeah, maybe how it compares to Wingspan in your guesstimation or your experience. Okay, see you later. Bye-bye.